I still don't understand where this background came from because I don't have the photo on my computer and I never changed it. But oh well, it looked nice though. So thank you to the hackers. Okay, so the hyper aware life in the world of escapism. And as you can see, I'm bulk recording based on the outfit. When you see too much, the hardest part about seeing too much is not actually seeing too much. It is spending years pretending you did not see what you saw because everyone around you seemed more comfortable not looking. And I think that is where my story with hyper awareness really begins. I was born by the river. Literally. Well, the Mississippi River was about 3 miles from the hospital where I was born, but we're going to let Sam Cooke have this one. And somewhere between those humble beginnings, emotionally unstable environments, nightlife, friendship, jobs, social media, living arrangements, relationships, maritime work, aka offshore, and every other strange little ecosystem I passed through, I developed what I now describe as hyper awareness. I noticed things, patterns, emotional shifts, contradictions, power dynamics, changes in tones, the difference between what somebody says and what their behavior continues saying after their mouth closes. After a long time, I thought the problem was that I noticed too much. Now I think the bigger problem was that I noticed a lot while still being disconnected from myself. Because awareness without self knowledge can turn into surveillance. Awareness without boundaries can turn into unpaid emotional labor. Awareness without discretion can turn into constant frustration. And awareness without a life of your own can make you an expert on everyone except yourself. This was the hardest lesson I had to learn. Escapism was everywhere. My introduction to escapism hit home like a field goal splitting the uprights at the last second of a championship game because I eventually realized I had not just been surrounded by escapism, I participated in it. I had nostalgia hunts. I crafted a party animal identity that made me magnetic in certain environments. I could become the entertainment, the connector, the funny one, the reliable one, the person everyone knew, the person who could walk into a room and make other people feel comfortable. First of all, celebration. It has been so long since I've been on that scene that now when I run into people, they do not recognize me. Thank God. I have the memory of an elephant, so I never forget a face, and it only takes me probably about 5 seconds to connect where that face has last been seen. But, whew, anyway, the person who could walk into a room and make other people feel comfortable, and none of that was necessarily fake. That version of me existed, but sometimes we can exaggerate real parts of ourselves because they are the parts receiving the most applause. And before you know it, you are maintaining a character. You are not necessarily asking, do I actually like this? You're asking, does everyone like me when I do this? Those are two completely different questions. Years later, I realized something almost embarrassingly simple. I never really loved the club. I loved how I felt at the club. I did not necessarily love every event. I loved the people who benefited from me showing up to those events. I did not love every environment I repeatedly entered. Sometimes I loved the identity those environments reflected back to me. And that distinction changed everything because escapism does not always look like somebody sitting alone in a dark room avoiding reality. Sometimes escapism has bottle service, a degree, overtime, a gym membership, religious language, a relationship status, 300,000 followers. Sometimes escapism looks extremely productive. The question is not simply, what are you doing? The better question is, what does doing this allow you to avoid? That is where things get uncomfortable and useful. And where my hyper awareness may have started. I always be on it and then I just get lost in the slides. I suspect some of my awareness developed because emotional instability was normal in some of my earliest environments. And I want to be careful here. I really don't, but not everyone who becomes highly observant has some dramatic psychological origin story. And begin being perceptive does not automatically mean someone is traumatized. But when environments are unpredictable, some people become extremely skilled at reading them. You notice tone, facial expression, footsteps, silence, who is irritated, who is pretending not to be irritated. Whether the atmosphere changed, those abilities can become adaptations, and later those same adaptations can become useful in workplaces, friendships, relationships, businesses, leadership, negotiation, and social environments. For me, they did. I was somehow able to sit cross-legged inside the volcanic chamber of unstable environments while maintaining peaceful, safe, welcoming spaces for myself and for people close enough to experience my unfiltered personality. I used to wonder, how am I functioning here? Then I realized I had been training for emotionally complicated environments since childhood. Hyper awareness does not mean saying everything you notice. Yeah, that was it right there. So I am on. Look, by the time I reached the maritime, aka offshore industry, working on supply vessels in the Gulf of whatever we are calling it when you watch this video, I already understood something important. And yes, I got dragged on Instagram over an account I created in 2019 containing the words Gulf of Mexico. I had quit social media before the naming controversy even became relevant, so I am assuming someone thought the name was some political statement, which is hilarious. Because while I support people participating politically, I do not like the groupification and gangification of politics where individual ethics disappear underneath whatever umbrella someone joined. Everyone starts blaming every drop of water leaking through their umbrella on people standing underneath the opposite umbrella. Anyway, offshore environments could be emotionally intense, and those environments reinforce something I already suspected. If you are highly observant, you cannot react to everything you observe. You have to smile and dial because noticing something does not automatically create an obligation to announce it. People often project their own level of awareness onto other people. They assume that if something is obvious to them, everyone knows it. And if something is hidden from them, everyone else must not know it either. Somebody can experience genuine mental shock when another person identifies something they thought was invisible. Maybe someone consistently becomes upset whenever they are excluded from even minor conversations or decisions. Maybe through what they voluntarily share about themselves, you begin to suspect that being overlooked touches something deeper for them. Maybe they spent years feeling unheard. Maybe attention was inconsistent. Maybe mistakes were one of the few reliable ways they received attention. Maybe none of that is true. The last sentence is important because hyper awareness still requires humility. Pattern recognition is not psychic ability. Observation gives you hypothesis, not divine revelation. You can notice the dots without pretending you have been authorized to write someone else's entire biography. So I learned notice, file it away, adjust accordingly. But unless it is relevant, useful, safe, or necessary, keep your mouth closed, baby. Please do, because people, the way people react, especially people who really on some manipulative stuff. When you mention something that was supposed to be hidden, the look in their eyes, baby, the looks I didn't see in my life, I will never forget them. Because people do not always want to know what you can see, and more importantly, they are not always entitled to know everything you can see. Chapter 5. Complaints can create counterfeit connection. Another pattern I began noticing was how easily shared complaints can create the appearance of intimacy. People who complain regularly can become strongly attached to the people who listen. Then the listener validates the complaint. Bonus points if the listener adds a complaint of their own. Now both people feel connected, but they may not actually know each other. They know each other's grievances, and grievances can become social glue. Some relationships are not built around compatibility. They are built around having the same enemy, the same boss, same ex, same neighborhood complaint, same political irritation, same celebrity they cannot stand, the same family member, the same coworker, online community. Remove the complaint and suddenly no one knows what to talk about. That is not always friendship. That is a temporary alliance. And once I understood that, I became much more careful about confusing emotional disclosure with emotional intimacy. Oversharing does not automatically mean closeness. Complaining together does not automatically mean compatibility. Someone knowing your wounds does not mean they earn access to them. That's why when like I've been in public places in life and they've had people who we probably based on, because based off is incorrect, based on their presentation, we could have been cool with each other in real life, but when they came in the game with complaints, I'm like, hell no, I had flashbacks and mm-mm. Projection changed how I interpreted people. I also became fascinated by projection. People who struggle with the behavior sometimes become extremely sensitive to seeing anything that resembles that behavior in other people. A person ashamed of being dishonest may become obsessed with catching everyone else lying. Someone insecure about attention may interpret another's confidence as attention seeking. Someone who thrives on gossip may become extremely concerned about who is messy. Man, look, that's a whole separate video. Somebody who has not made peace with parts of themselves may interpret other people's behavior through that unresolved conflict. Sometimes people are correctly identifying something. Sometimes they're seeing themselves. Sometimes it is both. And that taught me something incredibly freeing. Not every accusation deserves an investigation. Sometimes someone else's interpretation of you is information about them. You do not have to turn every assumption into a pothole and become the Department of Transportation. You do not have to fill it. Let them drive around it. Hyper awareness can mean feeling more, not less. Chapter 7. What surprised me is that hyper awareness did not make me emotionless. For me, it almost did the opposite. I can experience things intensely. If something genuinely excites me, I'm on the moon, partially because I am bored by a lot of things. And baby, I'm monotone in real life. I don't hide it. Many external experiences no longer feel particularly novel. Travel, fitness, cooking, nightlife, material things, different cities, different environments. I have experienced in different countries. I have experienced enough that novelty by itself does not move me the way it once did. So when something genuinely reaches me, I appreciate it deeply. But emotional intensity works in the other direction too. Guilt can feel like a televised trial. I have never aimed for protection, perfection. That would be ridiculous, but I am extremely careful with how I handle people because I understand that actions can echo much further than the moment in which they occur. And that brings me to one of the strangest relationships I have had with my own emotions. The hyper aware connection to your own emotions. Chapter 8. I was trained from a very young age to internalize my emotions. And for me, that both had quick benefits and consequences. The consequence was that emotional suppression did not always serve me internally. Holding everything inside can create its own pressure. You can become excellent at appearing calm while carrying an entire hurricane internally. And then when I would release the hurricane on people who deserved it, because I'm not a person who would have anger at people who didn't, but they deserved it in the moment. But overall, in retrospect, no one deserves my internal energy. That's for me, because energy is still energy, even if it is getting somebody together in a certain way. But there was another side to it. I learned very early how not to turn temporary emotion into permanent damage. I never had the experience of becoming angry with someone I genuinely love, saying the ugliest thing I could possibly think of, attacking every insecurity I know they have, waiting until my emotions settle, and then having to walk around afterward with a broom and dustpan trying to clean up what I destroyed. That was never me. Honestly, if I knew that life was full of mistakes and once I became an adult, a lot of people lives would just be repeat mistakes, I definitely would have been doing a lot more reckless things and then blaming it on young age. But y'all, yeah, a lot of people who experienced me in my younger years, they better thank whoever they pray to that I've always been responsible with the way I handle things because anyways, I internalized sometimes too much, but I learned restraint. And there is a difference between emotional regulation and pretending not to have emotions. That distinction took me years to understand because while I was regulating myself, I sometimes allowed emotionally reckless people to use me like the emotional mudroom rug. They will walk through whatever emotional storm they were experiencing, drag all the mud inside, wipe their feet across me, and afterwards stamp an apology over the damage, like the idea of accountability automatically repaired the wound. I'm sorry. Okay, apology matters, accountability matters, but accountability is not a time machine. The fact that you acknowledge that you punctured someone does not automatically remove the wound. Apologies can be a part of a repair. They are not substitutes for change behavior. That was huge for me because I had to stop judging someone only by whether they eventually apologize and start looking at the entire cycle. What happened before the apology? How frequently does this happen? Does the behavior change afterward? Do they become more responsible with my emotional safety? Or have apologies simply become the cleanup crew following the same recurring disaster? Those are very different things. High emotions is often a terrible classroom. Another thing hyper awareness taught me about emotions is that extremely emotional states are usually terrible environments for introducing new or opposing information. When someone is emotionally flooded, the goal often shifts from understanding to defense. You can have the greatest evidence in the world, the clearest explanation, a PowerPoint, footnotes, charts, a judicial panel, Morgan Freeman narrating. And none of it matters if the person's nervous system has already interpreted the conversation as a threat. Sometimes the most productive thing everyone involved can do is cease correspondence temporarily, not as manipulation, not as punishment, not to make someone panic, but because clearer heads can sometimes produce conversations that heightened emotional states cannot. Everything does not have to be resolved right now. That sentence saved me tremendous energy because urgency itself can become part of this function. Some people believe every disagreement has to be solved at peak emotional intensity. No, go home, drink water. Matter of fact, eat something, sleep, take a walk, think, write. Come back when everyone remembers they are talking to another human being. But there is a plot twist. Some people never reach that point because they emotions are so explosive. Even with the break, the conversation being reintroduced, they gonna go right back to 10 again. Good luck with dealing with those kinds of people. And if you are with those kinds of people, the sooner you accept that you that person and either adjust it or live life based on you being that person, that's the better it will be. Because my whole thing with people, that is a common theme in all my videos. It is not labeling people behaviors or judging people behaviors. The connection is always the fact that people have behaviors that they refuse to acknowledge, and their life is based on those behaviors being prevalent and shaping their life. That's the thing that I'm trying to get through when I'm mentioning these things. You can be whoever you want. I don't care. That's your life. Everyone deserves to live their life, but however, you can't want to fly with the birds when you rolling in the mud like a pig. So, you know what I'm saying? When reproach itself becomes the problem, chapter 10. There are people who are so far above reproach in their own minds that any conversation, even smelling like the cologne reproach wears, sends them into an emotional tornado. You're not attacking them. You're not insulting them. You're not humiliating them. You're saying, hey, this happened. It affected me and we need to discuss it. And suddenly the conversation becomes about your tone, your timing, your facial expression, something you did 7 years ago. The fact they are stressed, the fact no one appreciates them, the fact everyone blames them, the weather, the economy, Mercury, anything except the original issue. At some point, that becomes information. And that is when continuation or separation deserves serious consideration, especially when the stalemate involves something fundamental to either person's well being, because titles cannot supersede irreconcilable differences. Friend, mother, father, brother, sister, partner, spouse, employer, employee, pastor, mentor, best friend, 20-year friendship, 30-year marriage, 10-year job. Those titles describe the relationship. They do not automatically make the relationship functional. And this is why it's private relationships are the best because these public facing relationships put pressure on people to appease the public. Relationships staying together because people feeling like I'm not gonna give them people on the internet what they want, but then you miserable. People sticking to friends because they don't want the internet to think that they bad friends. People sticking with jobs because they don't want their family to think they're a bum. Like, baby, when you live for other people, you will never be alive. You will always be dead inside because other people don't even know what they want. A lot of them don't even have what they want. Some people do, but a lot of the people that are in these environments that have people under this pressure, it's like the crabs in the bucket thing is deeper than what people realize. It's a cliche, but if you really dissect the way crabs operate in the bucket, in the way a lot of society, people who are in groups, you have social groups, you have religious groups, you have ethnicity groups, you have city groups, you have hoods, you have all of these different things that y'all are attached to, and y'all are not able to live and be free because you're trying to fit in with those people and continually fit in with those people, even though, anyways, they do not automatically make the relationship functional. A high level title cannot repair a low level reality. If two people fundamentally disagree about something essential and repeated attempts at good faith resolution go nowhere, history by itself cannot manufacture compatibility. That does not automatically mean someone is evil. Sometimes people are incompatible. Sometimes values conflict. Sometimes communication styles are incompatible. Sometimes one person's requirement for peace violates another person's preferred way of functioning. Like for me, my reality was that a lot of connections was not was only able to function if I performed. As long as I shut up and went to the club, shut up and borrow money and never get it back, shut up and always be the person answering the phone and replying to what you doing 20 times a day, even though it's pointless and it's from grown ass musty ass people, men and women. Look, ooh, I almost went there. Whew. Anyways, so as long as I shut up and perform, it was good. But when I started like actually having my needs, baby, that didn't work. Your needs was never meant for this connection. You built this connection off of you being Mr. Available, so you gonna stay Mr. Available, and that's how it went, and that's why I'm not. Word to D&D. Word to me. And sometimes accepting incompatibility is healthier than forcing closeness because the title sounds important. Do not take escape advice from people escaping too. Chapter 11. This is also why I became much more selective about where I receive relationship advice. Be careful taking advice about escaping dysfunction from people who are still participating in their own version of escapism, because people often normalize your survival strategies that allow them to remain inside situations they were unwilling or unable to change. You just have to ignore that. That's just how they are. Keep the peace. Don't say anything. That's your family. You've been friends for too long. Everyone hates their job. Mind you, this is irritating voices is quotation marks I'm reading. At least they don't hit you. At least they pay the bills. At least you have somebody. And see, for me, I was in the friendships with a lot of people who actually were emotional, and that used to be my thing. At least they don't try to fight me like they do other people. And lo and behold and lo, they tried. But my thing is, for me, that was a very dangerous thing on their part because if I would have engaged with that, they would have anyways. Yeah. So, and sometimes getting by temporarily is necessary. People have financial realities, children, housing concerns, health issues, contracts, employment obligations, safety concerns, real life complications. I am not pretending everyone can dramatically exit every difficult situation tomorrow morning, but a temporary survival strategy should not automatically become a permanent life philosophy because this is how people come out of long toxic bonds with friends, employers, family members, lovers, institutions, or entire lifestyles, and suddenly overcorrect for all of the years they feel lost. Overcorrection is natural too when you make a change. If you decided to stop doing a certain habit, if you wanted to lessen caffeine or lessen sugar or drink more water, the natural thing is to overcorrect. But you know, that's not really good because sometimes it leads to premature burnout or relapsing. They spent 10 years unable to travel. Now every month needs a trip. They spent 20 years unable to say no. Now everything gets a no. They spent years being financially controlled. Now spending becomes symbolic freedom. Now, they spent years inside one relationship. Now intimacy feels like imprisonment. They spent decades living according to someone else's expectations. Now any suggestion sounds like control. That reaction makes sense, but overcorrection can still allow the old environment to control the new life. Because if everything you do now is a reaction to what happened then, the past is still driving. Freedom is not merely doing the opposite, freedom is being able to choose, thinking long term in a reaction based world. This is where I frequently clash with trend driven thinking. Some people make major decisions because everyone around them is currently emotionally activated. End the friendship immediately, expose them, destroy the business. You better sue the business before you destroy the business. Don't just destroy, you better sue them. Post the screenshots, get revenge, spend the money, book the trip, buy the thing, quit today, respond right now. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, and then what happens Thursday? What happens 6 months later? What happens when someone gets an attorney? What happens when you calm down? What happens when an algorithm finds another villain? That is, see, the villain thing. That's why, for me, I refuse the parasocial in like if people like the channel, that's cool, but how people use manipulative quotes and words and different things to get different things, like how they'll make different statements to trick people to comment and all of this other stuff. Baby, I'm not doing all of that, because for me, I see how y'all do the people that y'all like now. Y'all know I'm cool. Keep me the way where I'm at. If you like the information, share it, do whatever you want with it, twerk it, steal it, bill it, deal it, fill it, seal it. I don't care, but no, I will never trust the general public. I see what y'all do every single day. What happens when the credit card statement arrives? What happens when everyone cheering for you disappears? That does not mean nothing, because I'll still be cheering for you, says a manipulative content creator. I'll always be there. Whenever you're alone, just know I'm rooting for you somewhere. Then if you see me in public, I'm be like, get away from me. I know where the legs are, and sometimes the legal is the legs. You cannot spell legal without a leg. I'm just saying. I say the darnest things. History made modern panic look different. I have always loved history, still do. It was one of those subjects where I could get 100 out of 100 without feeling like I was working, because I was fascinated by one particular thing. Human beings repeat themselves. Technology changes, clothes change, language, buildings change, but humans, baby, humans remix. And one of the strangest part of modern life is watching people believe their panic is historically unprecedented. We have had technological panics, moral panics, economic bubbles, culture panics, religious panics, computer panics, internet panics, Y2K, B2K, NBA 2K, the .com bubble, the satanic panic, now artificial intelligence panic. Different subject, similar emotional machinery. This does not mean every new concern is imaginary. Some concerns are completely legitimate. The mistake is believing fear itself proves that something is unprecedented. History gives you emotional distance. You begin asking, what part is actually new? What part is old human reaction wearing new clothes? What happened the last time society reacted this way? Who profited from the panic? Who underestimated the change? Who exaggerated it? Who adapted? Who froze? This is why awareness becomes less about predicting the future and more about recognizing recurring human behavior. My biggest mistake was trying to save people from their own past. 14. One of the grave mistakes I made was building close relationships with people who were substantially weaker than me in areas that were essentially my peace. And when I say weaker, I'm not saying less valuable as human beings. I mean weaker in specific capacities. Because when it comes to value, I don't give value to human beings unless we both on the block and we selling it. That's the only. I'm joking, but yeah, I mean weaker in specific capacities: decision making, emotional regulation, planning, safety, discernment, financial responsibility, conflict management. Like, I've always been miserable with dramatic people who always get into it with people, and not even on no be kumbaya friendly stuff. It's like literally the person would be making issues with everyone. The person forgot to give her a receipt, so she slept with her man. The dude forgot to tell him good morning, so he must won't fight him. Like, it's just too much. Anyway, self protection. And because and granted, I'm from New Orleans, so y'all see how these New Orleans creators act. So, and not even creators, but celebrities. Like, pretty much a lot of people from New Orleans that are on social media today are usually infamous. And the few that are not, I don't even be knowing they're from New Orleans until I look at their bio. But the ones who lead with their New Orleanians isms just be full of drama. And because I was stronger in some of those areas, I automatically began compensating for them. That became my role: protector, fixer, research department, crisis management, emergency contact, translator, navigator, and reference on job applications. Even though, good luck if you got me on one now, because baby, again, I'm not coming up off do not disturb. You better email me. And sometimes the emotional airbag. The problem is that helping someone avoid the consequences of their patterns is not necessarily helping them change their patterns. Sometimes you simply become infrastructure. It is like removing snakes from a house that sits in the woods, leaves every door open 24 hours a day, and keeps mice as pets. Congratulations, you have lifetime employment. I spent years getting snakes out of houses people refuse to close. And because I performed that role well, I confused my usefulness with responsibility. That was dangerous, because once people become accustomed to you functioning as a resource, any attempt to become a full human being can feel like deprivation to them. You say no, now you change. You stop fixing things, now you're selfish. You challenge something, now you're jealous. You establish distance, now you're fake. Sometimes people do not miss you, they miss your function. That was difficult for me to accept, but it was freeing. I could read the room, but not always read my own life. That might be the biggest contradiction of my earlier life. My hyper awareness allowed me to read emotional rooms, but my disconnection from myself allowed me to celebrate people whose actions had already told me they were not compatible with me. People could drink constantly, chase connection constantly, cycle through people constantly, and repeatedly recreate the same conflicts. And because I was larger than the problem in certain areas, emotionally, socially, physically, practically, I could become an excellent void filler. I thought consistency would heal what inconsistency created. I thought love would heal abandonment. I thought patience would heal insecurity. I thought loyalty would heal betrayal. I thought being safe enough would eventually teach another person to become safe. Baby, I thought I was in a Disney princess movie. Apparently, I believed enough sustained affection would make woodland animals appear and everyone's childhood wounds would begin singing in harmony. That is not how unresolved pain works. Pain that has been not been identified can get buried beneath relationships, substances, work, shopping, sex, social media, religion, entertainment, productivity, status, or constant crisis. But buried is not the same as healed. Think about a damaged tire. If the dashboard tells an inexperienced driver something is wrong but does not tell them which tire is losing air, they may know there is a problem without knowing where the problem is. People can live like that emotionally. They know something hurts. They just don't know what. So they plant new things over unstable ground. Then they wonder why everything keeps sinking. New relationship, same problem. New city, same problem. New job, same problem. New friend group, same problem. New church, same problem. New social media account, same problem. New year, same problem. Sometimes the scenery changed, the wound did not. And loving someone does not give you the ability to identify or heal that wound. Be careful loving people, because if you loving them based on you being a caregiver in their life, don't be surprised if it don't be returned when you need it. Hyper awareness was not the prison. Eventually, I realized something important. Hyper awareness was not necessarily what was making me miserable. Hyper awareness became miserable when I surrounded myself with environments where curiosity was punished, where questioning the group was interpreted as betrayal, where people had sealed ideologies, where unfamiliarity automatically became danger, where growth was acceptable only as long as you did not grow far enough to make everyone else uncomfortable. That is when awareness feels like suffering. Imagine knowing the room is filling with smoke while everyone else is arguing about whether they like the smell. Eventually, you stop explaining smoke. You walk outside, and one of the biggest areas where I had to apply that lesson involved family, family, proud family. Titles do not make people superhuman. Chapter 17. Society puts enormous pressure. Dang, I made it to the end of the slides already. Society puts enormous pressure on people to maintain familial relationships, regardless of what maintaining those relationships actually costs. People casually say, that's still your mother, that's still your father, that's still your family, that's still your pastor, that's still your husband, that's still your wife. Okay, and they are still human because someone's parent does not cause them to levitate 3 feet off the ground while light brighter than 1,000 sunrises shoots from their forehead and forms a majestic crown. Parents are humans. Family members are humans. Religious leaders are humans. Spouses are humans. Humans can be beautiful. Humans can also cause extraordinary harm. And especially when people are not emotionally intact. When you're not emotionally intact, you are more likely to succumb to your urges. And people, for whatever reason, do not realize that humans have hormones. And then people who are unregulated, sometimes their hormones are wild. Like, just crazy, and the things that they lust for is crazy, and some people do a bad job at covering up their deep-seated addictions, even though they behaviors, if you pay attention to people behaviors, they always project what they trying to cover up, especially when the people act like they're against stuff and they make profiles about it. Anyways, I said too much. We understand this perfectly when discussing strangers. The person stealing from a business is someone's family member. The person sitting in prison is someone's family member. The celebrity everyone hates is someone's family member. The neighbor everyone avoids is someone's relative. But suddenly, when harm happens inside a family, people begin treating biological connection like diplomatic immunity. And the person giving you advice about maintaining that relationship does not have to absorb the consequences. They do not feel the exhaustion, the disappointment, the anxiety, the repeated failed attempts, the recovery period afterward. They give the instruction, you live the result. I finally realized I had to evaluate relationships based on their actual effect on my life, not merely the title. And that is something that I've always stood by when it comes to advice I have given people. When I have given advice to people being friends at that point in life, I have never allowed them to go through it alone. If I told a person that I suggest that they get another job, guess who was helping them look for jobs? Guess who was offering to do their resume? I proactively offered that because I understand that many people will tell you to do things. They will tell you to jump off the ledge, but they will not give you the parachute. They will not be at the bottom waiting with whatever the fire department be using on them videos when kids or cats jumping, they catch them magically. They don't have that. And that's why for me, I like advice is really nothing if the person is just throwing it at you. Like, anyway, chapter 18. But then again, people be winning because those are people who surrounded by a lot of people. They throw stones from glass houses. They talk down to people. They, preach about stuff that they don't live. It seems like based on the way society uplifts people, that tells me that the generic wild part of society, the parts of society that you can easily find online or easily find in person, because there are different types of people in society, prefers people to perform. They love performers. And no matter what people tell you, they will show you what it really is. Then I looked around and saw the loops. Chapter 18. This is where things started getting ugly. No egos were harmed in the formation of the following words, hopefully. The same clubs I used to visit in my 20s, some of the same people were still there years later. When I still had social media and those pages would occasionally appear, it felt like someone invented a time machine with wrinkles. Same environment, same behavior. Some people even still have the same style as they did in their 20s. Like, same interpersonal drama, same DL dudes cosplaying. Let me stop. That's facts though. But anyways, I'm gonna stop. The people constantly complaining about debt was still in debt. The people flexing publicly and struggling privately were still performing the same routine. People miserable about their social media timelines will complain about their algorithms every day without creating a completely new account and deliberately building a new one. People in miserable inside group chats would continue participating in the group chat. People would spend years talking about friends they clearly did not like instead of allowing the relationship to naturally end. Somebody would repeatedly go to the same business, have the same terrible experience, and complain about it and then return. You recommend another place. That place cost $1 more. Meanwhile, the same person will go thousands of dollars into debt buying superficial validation tools, but $1 extra for a safer parking lot, faster service, and more professional employees. Suddenly, we are Warren Buffett, the billionaire who is famous for his sales. I mean, not sales. Oh Lord, his savings tactics and all of that other stuff. This is not about him. It's about me. I have watched the people stay in terrible living environments for years while creating a million explanations for why movement was impossible. Sometimes those explanations are legitimate. Housing is expensive. Moving requires resources. People have children, credit issues, employment constraints, disabilities, transportation problems. Real barriers exist, but we also have to distinguish a barrier from a storyline. Not to mention, we have to stop grouping people as one. Every single parent is not the same person. They did not get there the same way. They don't have the same habits. They don't, some of, like, a lot of people are actually really doing an awesome job for the resources they have. If we could actually get a little bit more detailed with categorizing the different types of people so that the ones that are helpable, help, like, able to be helped, they can get the help, and then the ones that need a little bit more attention and need to really do some changes, they could do that too. Because when we just throw everyone away because of the category that they're in, that's insane. Like, throwing every single person from the hood away, knowing that it's some of the most intelligent people in society. That's where they started. Like, I get it, but no, it's not gonna work anyway. Because sometimes people use struggles that genuinely affect other people as explanations for why they personally refuse to examine options they actually have. And questioning that distinction is difficult because people react before they review. Then the apartment becomes part of the personality. The neglected vehicle becomes part of the storyline. The dysfunctional lover becomes part of the storyline. Nobody wanna see us together. It kind of is. Meanwhile, no one was thinking about y'all. I've seen that in real life from people who used to post stuff like that, and it's like y'all can't even get money for a black and mild. Nobody gives. Anyways, people are often attached to the environments they complain about, not because they enjoy suffering, because familiar suffering can still prove identity. Leaving the environment means losing the storyline. Who are you without the club? Who are you without the dysfunctional friend? Who are you without the family drama? Who are you without constantly discussing your ex? Who are you without complaining about the apartment? Who are you without arguing online? Who are you if your favorite villain disappears? That is where escapism and identity begins holding hands. You may hate the environment consciously while depending on it psychologically. Then I realized I was repeating environments too. And before I point my telescope too far outward, I was doing it too. That is the part awareness eventually forces you to confront. I kept returning to environments I had already outgrown. I thought familiarity meant compatibility. I thought history meant obligation. I thought being needed meant being valued. I thought being capable of surviving something meant I should continue surviving it. Those are not the same thing. Just because you can carry something does not mean it belongs in your hands. And then another thing hit me. None of the people I was bending until I broke for were inherently greater than me. They were not automatically smarter, more capable, loving, loyal, responsible, successful, powerful. So why had I granted their opinion so much authority? That question was not about ego. It was about proportion. Yeah, because all of that fear of ego is why people who egotistical are overly abundant in egoisms. And then you have people like who I was avoiding that. But then you letting people who not even moving, who not even running in place, they laying in place, telling you what you should and should not do. Like that's insanity. Why was I treating someone else's That's like a squirrel telling you you need an oil change. Like you dig nuts for a living. Who are you? Why was I treating someone else's disappointments like a Supreme Court decision? Why was everyone else allowed to choose themselves? Why, while I had appointed myself ambassador to their emotional stability? That's because when people see a duck, they will make you quack. Simple as that. No matter how they try to dress it up, no matter who they self justify, they negative actions, no matter how many fake positive quotes they post on the internet to drown all of the demonic actions they carry out on a regular daily basis, no matter how much character assassination they attempt to do in the event of the decline of y'all relationship just so they can save face because I guess they think that you're going to expose them, which to me I've literally never exposed anyone I parted ways with, which honestly mine probably would have been one for the books. I probably would have been became infamous for being the person who exposes friendships once they over with the amount of information that I would observe just naturally because people are very careless when they don't think that they're being judged, which they were not being judged at the moment. In retrospect, they were being judged, but in the present moment, they were not. In the present, I am never judgmental because I'm not that like my brain don't have like I'm not about to use all of that brain power to not only be observing you but also observing myself, also passing judgments, also labeling and identifying all kinds of different traits in real time. No, I'm not a supercomputer, even though it seems like it. But yeah, so no, that was never me. The guilt of the hyper aware can become chains. I used to feel guilty because I could see where certain things were going. Sometimes people would doubt me in the present and say, "You were right" in the future. Again and again and again, but being right did not give me control. That was another lesson. You cannot choose someone else's life path. You cannot install wisdom into another adult like a software update. You cannot drag someone into readiness. You cannot force curiosity. You cannot make someone tired of repeating themselves. You cannot make someone value peace more than familiarity. And repeatedly interrupting someone else's consequences can interfere with the very experiences that might eventually teach them. I had to respect other people's right to make decisions I would never make. And I had to respect my own right not to stand underneath the falling debris. That is freedom. Losing 1,000 pounds without losing 1,000 pounds. When I finally started living more deliberately according to my own terms, it felt like losing 1,000 pounds overnight. No loose skin flapping behind me like I was preparing for flight, just lighter. Because I stopped treating access to me like a human right. Distance became information. Silence became information. Repeated disrespect became information. The fact I had to repeatedly explain extremely basic standards of treatment, like calling me on the phone and not putting the phone down and doing a million things in the background and expecting me to stay on the phone every single time. And then once I realized that was not even realized, once I like connected all of the energy I was giving away and that being a part of it, and then the person being informed and dismissing it, and then trying to press forward with more phone calls. Hell no. Anyway, and that's multiple people that did that, which is crazy. I think that's like a new personality trait, like a new personality archetype now with all of the different zombie apocalypse scrolling and overly stimulated, burnt out people. It's like that is perfectly normal for a person to call you regularly for hours and not talk about nothing, but then don't want to get off the phone. And I had to drink a sip of water because that level of dryness made my throat dry. And especially when rebuilding self love after years of external validation participation, reducing someone's access to you can sometimes be necessary. And the reason why the passion comes is not from me, because I really don't give a fuck about the people. When people are gone, you're literally gone. That's kind of like when you read a chapter in a book. You don't cry about the chapter. You don't keep going back and rereading the chapter. You continue reading the book until you're done. Now, if it's a rereadable book, then that's different. But in the midst of going through the book, you don't do all of that. And for me, I think what happens is me thinking about people who still there right now. Like it's probably someone right now who is always burned out. And yes, their life may be difficult, but all of the energy that could stabilize them is being given to a bunch of ungrateful bastards. And that's unfortunate. Hopefully you be free one day and you be able to forgive yourself and you don't keep harping over the time that's lost because it's still time ahead. Like you may have lost 5 years, but what if you live another 90 years? What if you live another 60, 70 years? Like, and even if you live another 3 years, baby, make it the best. That's all. Not as punishment, not as revenge, not as some dramatic internet boundary performance, as environmental design. If I know something consistently destabilizes me, why would I maintain unlimited exposure to it? And pay attention to people who continuously bring information about someone you're trying to move away from. You stop communicating with the ex, they update you about the ex. You stop dealing with family drama, they send screenshots. You leave the group, they give you a weekly newsletter. That is information too. Sometimes boundaries require controlling not only direct access, but indirect access. 22, do not turn awareness into alienation. There's another side of this matter. Hyper awareness can become arrogance if you're not careful. You start noticing everything: texting while driving, people yelling on speakerphone, rude employees, terrible customer service, people interrupting, bad financial decisions, contradictions, performative behavior, emotional immaturity, and eventually you can convince yourself everyone is ridiculous except me. That is dangerous because awareness should improve your navigation, not convince you that you are superior to humanity. You still need people. You still need conversations, community, experiences, laughter. You still need situations where you're not analyzing every molecule in the room. So take the wheel, choose the direction, but do not spend the entire drive staring at everyone else's lane. Someone may belong in your life temporarily. Someone may belong at a distance. Some may belong in one environment but not another. Someone can be fun at the cookout without becoming executor of your estate. Learn levels, access, context, discretion. You do not have to isolate yourself to protect yourself. Be careful who gets access to the unhealed you. And while we are discussing access, pay attention to what you share when you meet people. If you find yourself easily sharing your current unhealed wounds with people you barely know, that is information. Especially if you have no understanding of how that person has handled other people's vulnerabilities. We sometimes confuse being understood with quickly being safe. Those are not the same thing. Someone can understand you and still exploit you. Someone can relate to your wound and still be unhealthy. Someone can have a similar story and still have completely different ethics. Take your time. Observe. Let consistency reveal people. You do not have to hand someone the owner's manual to your emotional nervous system during the first week of knowing them. And the people who quickly expose people that they know for vulnerable things, that was always strange to me, especially when they would make up with them later. Because for me, a person being vulnerable about themselves, that is such a sticky area that I wouldn't even want to handle it to throw it back in their face because I don't want the stickiness on my hands. Kind of like if you handling seafood or you opening up a canned good if you have a pet and you get it on your finger and you got to wash your hands or else your hand gonna be smelling like cat or dog food all day. That's how I feel about that. So for me, I don't really take pride in someone else's weakness. Like I actually, anyways, shame creates more escapism. This is why I do not believe humiliation is the best tool for change. Like a lot of those content creators be up here insulting y'all. Why are you in debt? Why are you doing this? Why are you eating? Why are you like they don't even know anything about psychology. That's the funniest part. Like a lot of these things people have going on with them are signs of depression. It's signs of being abused. It's signs of being neglected. Like it's not just, oh, I'm going to be overweight today, or oh, I'm going to be poor, or oh, I'm going to get in $100,000 of debt. It's always a story. And when you try to erase people's story to try to push them to do other stuff, that's anyway. If you realize you've spent 5 years repeating an unhealthy pattern, beating yourself up about the 5 years does not give you the 5 years back. Now you are simply spending your year six ashamed of years 1 through 5. Study it. What were you receiving from the behavior? Attention, comfort, predictability, validation, status, escape, community, dopamine, hope, avoidance, identity. That information is more useful than calling yourself stupid. Maybe your phone is consuming 6 hours a day. Maybe you're constantly shopping. Maybe you are always dating someone. Maybe you're always working. Maybe you are constantly consuming outrage content. And baby, maybe if you always dating somebody, please, y'all need to make testing like STD testing a normal thing. Stop being afraid of STD testing. Like for real, because there is no possible way that you can guarantee someone is 100% clean. Now, there may be things that make you think someone has something, different symptoms and things, and that might not always be accurate because a lot of illnesses have similar, symptoms. But please, for the love of condoms and everything below your waistline, stop chancing that with people. If anything, make that your first date, especially if it's somebody that's dry talking. That is the great equalizer because people are going to ghost you. There are people who are insecure about their status and will quickly ghost you. That's good. Being rejected for things you believe in means that eventually two things could happen. Someone agrees with you and has the same outlook, or someone will come in trying to pretend to have the same outlook. But one of them will not last too long because performing takes too much energy. That is why when you deal with people on any level, you see a beginning person, and sometimes it gets better for genuine people. Genuine people don't come in the game with everything showing. They actually reveal more with time. And then you have people performing. They put on this big old performance like you VIP. And then once they energy run out, you become UIP, unimportant person. So yeah. Anyways, maybe you're always working. Maybe you're constantly consuming outrage content. Oh, I know y'all nervous system is fried, dried, and laid to the side. Maybe you keep returning to the same environment. You do not have to immediately labor yourself. Start with curiosity. What is this doing for me? Then ask, what is this costing me? Then, what could give me the benefit without requiring the same cost? That is a realistic approach to change. 25 realistic actions for realistic goals. This is where hyper awareness becomes powerful. Not when you notice everything wrong with everyone, when you use your awareness to redesign your life. Start small. If your social media timeline makes you miserable, you do not have to defeat the internet. Curate it, unfollow, mute, leave, make another account. Baby, when I tell you I use don't show me no videos from this account so much on YouTube, I don't know who the algorithm be thinking to be playing with. Some of the random stuff it be popping up. And I understand how it works, but still, don't play with me like that. Don't put that shit on my timeline. Stop feeding the algorithm things that make you angry, that being shocked that it serves you anger for breakfast. If a friendship survives exclusively because you initiate every interaction, guilty. Stop initiating temporarily. Don't announce it. Don't post a quote. Don't launch a congressional investigation. Observe. Let the relationship reveal its actual structure. If your environment is consistently stressful and you have realistic options to change it, investigate those options, not fantasy, real options, numbers, transportation, safety, employment, legal rights, time, actual resources, realistic actions for realistic goals. You do not have to solve your entire life by Friday. Make the next useful move, then make another. Stop asking for permission to experience your own life. Chapter 26. We this is almost the end, y'all. I promise. Now that I'm about to sing, but now I'm good. If you want to try something new, stop requiring approval from the least adventurous people you know. Research it. Find qualified professionals where safety matters. Learn the risks. Prepare properly. Then make your own decision. And if you're using payments for something that you are not familiar with, do not use unsecure payment methods. Please, for the love of Key Glock, continue or try to continue to use things that are disputable. The people are getting people by using methods that's hard to dispute, like crypto or like the cash sending services. Baby, if you can't pull up on that person and reach out and touch somebody's hand, then good luck. Don't do it. Or if you're gonna do it, have a limit. $20, $50. Like, baby, not no thousands. Please, please. It's because it's so many people out there that it's happening to. And thanks to, judgmental social media, a lot of people silence and not gonna ever say anything. But it's a lot of people being scammed out there. Then make your own decision. If I had listened to everyone around me, there are things I would have never done. I flew alone at 16. Experiences like that taught me that someone else's fear cannot automatically become my limitation. That does not mean recklessness. Please do not hear. Jneworleans told me to go free climb the side of a building because my auntie said it was dangerous. No, safety matters. Preparation matters. Expertise matters. The point is that other people's discomfort with the unfamiliar should not automatically become a prison for your curiosity. Chapter 27, stop announcing before you build it. And another one, stop talking about everything you have not completed. Some goals become psychologically satisfying to discuss before we have actually done enough work to support them. You tell everyone, they congratulate you. Everyone gets excited. You receive a little emotional reward, and the thing has not even been built yet. On top of that, premature announcements invite opinions. Now everyone is scared for you. Someone thinks it's stupid. Someone knows someone who failed. Someone thinks you should do something else. Someone is projecting their own limitations. And now a goal that originally existed between you and your possibilities has a committee. Everything does not need an audience. Some dreams need incubation. Build first, announce later, or never announce it. You are simply allowed to appear in the result. Chapter 28. Again, we're almost done. I really be hoping to get under an hour, but then I stopped caring after 50 minutes. Stop donating your life to performative conflict. This is one especially important online. Stop allowing content creators to convince you that participating in endless digital conflict is meaningful action. Someone reacts to another creator, then someone reacts to the reaction, then someone defends the person reacting to the person who reacted, then someone makes a response to the defender, and somehow you have donated 6 hours of your Tuesday to people who do not know you exist. People will have you jumping from platform to platform, pecking your fingers across the screen, trying to become the final comment standing, defending a group, defending a creator, defending a location, defending some abstract internet identity. Ask yourself, what changed in the real world because I participated? If someone claims to care deeply about a community, a city, a demographic, a cause, or a problem, look beyond the performance. What do they build? Who do they help? What resources do they share? What organizations do they support? What problems do they actually work on? Because representation without responsibility can become performance. Attention is a resource. Time is a resource. Your emotional energy is a resource. You are investing all three every day. Use them accordingly. Chapter 29. Again, we're almost done. One more. This entire conversation about awareness cannot end with everyone becoming a monk, sitting alone in a silent apartment, analyzing human behavior through the blinds. Please live. Be weird. Be curious. If being called weird still makes you cringe, examine that too. That used to hurt me, but then I used to be thinking I literally had to look at the people. That's when I became judgmental. Because when motherfuckers kept calling me names, I started looking at who was the one speaking. And I'm like, hold up, you know. Anyways, play pretend with the group sometimes when it's harmless and fun. Go to the theme party, wear the ridiculous outfit, dance terribly, enjoy the concert, eat dessert, laugh at dumb jokes, participate, then disappear when something stops being enjoyable. You do not have to turn every social interaction into a dissertation. There are countless ways to interact with people without surrendering your identity. Libraries, free community events, museums, parks, educational programs, religious communities, if that is your thing, esoteric communities, if that is your thing, volunteer organizations, classes, public lectures, neighborhood events, walking groups, fitness groups, professional organization. And thanks to the World Wide Web of chaos, there are tons and tons, word to the cargo that crushed my leg, of free online resources. You are not limited to whatever environment happens to around you first. And that might be one of the most psychologically freeing realizations available to us. Your original environment is not your permanent assignment. Hyper awareness becomes a gift when you turn it inward. Today, I do not think hyper awareness is about being the smartest person in the room. It is not about exposing everyone. It is not about diagnosing strangers. It is not about predicting every betrayal. It is not about avoiding humanity. It is about seeing clearly enough to choose deliberately. I can notice someone's patterns without making it my responsibility. I can love someone without volunteering to become their rehabilitation program. I can understand someone without giving them unlimited access to me. I can recognize someone's pain without permitting them to transfer it. I can regulate my emotions without pretending I don't have them. I can accept an apology without pretending the apology erased injury. Yeah. I mean, for people that to that who that applies to, because depending on what a person did, if you have to apologize to me, then you can keep the shit. I can pause the conversation instead of trying to resolve it while everyone is emotionally flooded. I can recognize incompatibility without needing someone to become a villain. I can leave familiar environment without needing that environment to agree with my decision. I can enjoy people without depending on them for identity. I can be alone without interpreting solitude as rejection. I can participate without belonging to every group. I can change without bringing everyone with me. And I can allow people to misunderstand me without submitting 47 page appellate brief explaining who I am. That might have been the final chain, the need to explain. There is freedom in realizing that assumptions are not assignments. Someone can think you're weird. Okay. Someone can think you changed. You did. Someone can think you're boring. Maybe you are boring to them. Someone can think you're a selfish because you stopped sacrificing yourself for their convenience. They are allowed to think that. Their interpretations does not create an emergency. 31. The real escape, which is the final chapter. Dear God. The real escape. The irony is that escapism promises freedom, but eventually many forms of escapism create another cage. The party you cannot stop attending, the timeline you cannot stop checking, the relationship you cannot stop discussing, the debt you cannot stop creating, the arguments you cannot stop participating in, the identity you cannot stop performing, the family role you cannot stop playing, the environment you cannot imagine leaving. And sometimes the real escape is not finding another distraction. It is finally looking directly at your life without the shame, without the audience, without the algorithm, without the group vote, and asking, do I actually like the life I am participating in? Not would everyone understand it, not would Instagram approve, not would my family approve, unless you live with them and they can put you out. But if you live on your own, fuck everybody. I'm sorry. Not would my friends come with me? Not would this make me look successful? Do I actually want this? And if the answer is no, what is one realistic action I can take that moves my actual life closer to something I do want? Not the perfect action, not the most dramatic action, not the action that makes the best social media announcement. The realistic action. Maybe it is making a phone call, saving $50, going to the library, researching another apartment, updating your resume, taking one class, trying one new environment, opening another bank account, blocking one source of chaos, walking 30 minutes, spending one evening without the phone, allowing one relationship to stop being artificially resuscitated, going somewhere alone safely, and be aware where you're going, and do not go nowhere that's known to be dangerous alone. Good luck. I mean, unless you just, you know, some dangerous person, then you don't have any problems. But yeah, learning one skill, seeking qualified help. I need some time before we continue this conversation. Sometimes freedom looks incredibly ordinary. That is where awareness becomes freedom. Not when you can see everyone else's cage, when you realize which doors in your life were unlocked the entire time and you walk through them. Because once you stop using your awareness exclusively to survive the world, you can finally start using it to build one you actually enjoy. And if you want me to make another video exploring the free websites, educational resources, public resources, strange corners of the internet, community resources, and other things I come across that can help build fuller lives without spending a fortune, let me know, because there's a whole world outside of the environments that taught you who you were supposed to be. And becoming aware of that world might be the beginning of actually living in it. And thank you for watching thus far. And I mean, the comments are open. You're welcome to comment whatever at this point. I mean, like, what are y'all gonna say? I appreciate the people who do comment. Y'all be saying some really nice stuff. Like, I'm like, wait, hold up, is this a safe space over here? Because baby, these people be saying some heartfelt things, and it's very nice. I really do appreciate that, and I don't expect it. It's not something that you should feel forced to do. And just thank you for everything. I'm a very gracious person. I just initially my first 90 videos, I was nervous about too much talking outside of like what I wrote, because I don't want to feel like I'm luring people like I see on a lot of channels. It's very uncomfortable for me to watch. But thank you, and you have a good one.